Welcome to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Main, awesome wife and dog mom for life. I'm a sex therapist turned sex coach, and I run a successful business selling relationship enhancement products. I absolutely love talking about all things sex. So you can expect this podcast to explore all things related to women's sexual health because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you discover and embrace what brings you pleasure so that you can own your sexual self. If that sounds good to you, then keep listening and let's fucking do this.
Sex life? Well, that training camp for the soul definitely helped me understand my body more, like not my physical, like the appearance of my body, but being in my body instead of being in my head. So my sexual history is based around shame and guilt. And so constantly being in my head, not feeling my body like I should. So through breath work and just not just so much talk therapy, but just more of the idea of breath work, meditation, things like that, I was able to get out of my head and more in the present, more in the feeling my body, allowing the feel of touch to not be shameful or unsafe, but more of a experience that I can enjoy.
Yeah.
But Jordan's program was like a lead into that, don't you think?
Jordan's program was more for me about, again, the breathing part was a big piece, but also just trusting myself in the company of men. I mean, I know that's not really a sexual piece, but it's a trust piece.
Yeah.
And I have my safe place is in the company of women. And that's not a sexual thing by any means. It's a mother learning thing. My mom is safe. My sisters are safe. Men are authoritarian figures that are somewhat abusive and overly masculine. Just all the stories that I've told myself over the years. And so being in Jordan's group, just all men, manifestation is what it's called.
Yeah.
I'm open.
Awesome. Well, okay, so 16 years of marriage, right?
16. Yeah, we are 16 going on 17.
Yeah.
Sound of Music reference.
Yeah.
And we were together for a couple years before that, but not very long. I was 29, you were 33. It was funny. I had this pattern of dating guys that just weren't completely available and just didn't really have much motivation. And I decided that I needed to meet someone that was 33 and had a college degree. So I was like looking for the 33 degree guy. And we went to we were invited to a white trash bash party.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's PC or not, but and it was fun because I'd been in the city that I lived in for years. So when you had someone new that moved into town, I was like, okay, who's this guy? So he walked in with his mullet wig on, and I had my fake black eye on, and my hair was all teased, and I had leopard print pants on, and I was just like, who is that guy? And the guy that invited him was gay and was totally after him. And Steve was like, he's being super nice, inviting me to this party, so I'll go and meet some new people. But yeah, we hit it off, and it was like a Me Too thing. Like we kept, me too, when we went out for our first date. And there's just like this wild chemistry. We had very similar families, and it just was like, I feel like we had this chemistry for sure that you would see like in movies that we both grew up with, Say Anything. What are some other good rom-coms? Like anything with Meg Ryan?
Yeah, Harry Met Sally, although it took them 10 years to get together because they hated each other, but that's probably not a great analogy.
But those rom-coms kind of set up this scene where it's like, oh, it's so magical. And I feel like we rode off of chemistry and passion and our love for each other and our compassion for each other and our love for our families for as long as we could ride that out. But, we had premarital counseling with our pastor.
Mm.
And I was a new pure romance consultant at the time, but I was still thirsty for any kind of knowledge that I could find out about intimacy and getting married. So when he was talking to us about the sex stuff, he was like, well, considering what you do, I probably don't need to talk about this for very long or talk about it very much. And so he kind of skipped over it. And I was like, man, I really wanted to get some other insight.
Mm-hmm.
I was always wanting more information on that. But we got to a point where the first few years of our marriage were fun, but after our first year of marriage, we went on a little getaway, and Steve was so great. I remember him being like, let's talk about what we did in this, or what we've done in this first year of our marriage and where we want to go next year. And he looked at me and he was like, I was thinking maybe we could go off birth control. And I was like, what? Kids? Okay, let's do it. And that was pretty much, like, I don't remember having much of a discussion of the what that would really mean for it was just kind of like, that's what we do.
Yeah, totally. It was like the MO of the times, you got married, you got kids. I didn't, as a man, I thought being a father was just like one of those automatic things that you just knew how to do it. Just like being a husband.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just support. You're there for them. You're the man of the house.
Yeah.
All those things. Not knowing that there was a slew of like books and people out there that probably would have benefited me more had I known that it's not a black and white system. There's a huge gray area to the sexual component of being married or being in a partnership, all the way down to how do I raise my child and how do I do it on the same page as my wife, which we both had very similar upbringings, but also very different.
Yeah.
When it comes to handling discipline. And so, yeah, we kind of didn't know what the hell we were doing.
I would love to hear more from each of you. Given that you do have a successful long-term marriage, what was the conversations about sex or relationships like that you had growing up? Shannon, if you want to start first.
I had a pretty comfortable, considering the time that I grew up, and I grew up Irish Catholic. I knew I could go to my parents and ask them if I had questions, but I didn't really know the questions to ask. And I grew up in Southern California until I was a sophomore in high school, and they had very good comprehensive sex ed that in 6th grade, I remember, we wrote down questions and they put it in a box and they would anonymously answer. And the woman who taught the class was very just, this is what it is, very fact-based. And then moving to Tennessee, it was an obvious difference. And this isn't saying that just Tennessee is this way. This is probably places in California too. So I don't want to like regionally stereotype or generalize, but just the city that I moved to, I noticed a big difference in the conversation, the understanding of just sex and being on your period, and the lack of conversation that my friends would they just didn't really talk about it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them were going through, the purity culture was starting. So I had a really comfortable relationship with my high school boyfriend. And so I had some, not great relationship patterns that I brought into this marriage, and that obviously led me to being with Steve. And I dated people, but they were good practices. It was good practice for me. So that's kind of my background. What about you, Steve?
Good stuff. Yeah. So my upbringing, my parents are still together as well, and they did the best with the knowledge that they had. But I never posed the question, and they never really challenged me or asked me questions like, what do you want to know? Like, do you have any questions for us? We just didn't talk about it. Mm. Grew up in a very, very Protestant, small farming town in Kansas, very centered around religion. The lifeblood of the town was a small Presbyterian college that kept a lot of the town employed, and then the other half of the town, you were a farmer or whatever.
Have you seen Footloose?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I'm not Kevin Bacon, but yeah.
I don't know. I've seen your dance moves. I would beg to differ.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. But yeah, very, very small Protestant town. You're either Methodist or Presbyterian. We probably talked more about sex in my high school youth group than we did in my own home. And it was centered around, God and waiting until you're married, and a lot of, I think unintended shame. I try not to blame any certain religion for sexual malpractice, so to speak. I think they were just working with what they had, and that was the Bible, and that was, the Bible's a good tool to keep people from doing bad things. And I think in this case, people thought sex before marriage was bad. So I carried that with me through most of my high school and college days, even though I did have sex. Typically it followed with, after ejaculation, it was followed with shame and like, why did I do this? I shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. It was never really purely enjoyable for me. I think in a sense that God or whoever, was kind of intended it to be for us as humans. So I really struggled with it. And on top of that, I had some trauma from when I was young, some sexual trauma as well. So there was just a lot going on in this head, of mine regarding sex. And I took it into my marriage and was very closed off about it. I didn't talk to Shannon about it. I just kind of faked it to make it.
Yeah, it was like a chore.
It was.
I would say it's role reversal, but I've been around enough women and had enough conversations to know that this is not as uncommon as we think. That sometimes the woman has a higher sex drive. Like I'm sure you've learned that too. Like it's kind of that yin and yang thing. Like if we both wanted to have sex all the time, we'd probably not get anything done. But at the same time, that conversation surrounding it, we didn't have that. I was like, what's wrong with me? Or how can I help him? Like I knew there was something under the surface because he was such a compassionate and passionate person, but there was like a disconnect. And there were times where I would do the traditional like sexy lingerie or do this or do that. And it would just be like deer in headlights because it wasn't expected. And then there would be times where it was like, yeah, he was totally into it. So it was confusing. It was like, I don't know what the right like formula is for him. I don't know how to talk about it without the wall going up. So, I think over time, other things started to come up alongside that. Like when you have kids, or when we had kids, this doesn't happen for everybody, but any major life change is going to have some stuff come up with it. So shortly after having our first son, who is now 13, there was just this, like, just a shift in Steve and how he was showing up. It was almost like a switch flipped, and he was just like, holy shit, I'm an emotional overload. And so it was like shut down, like, it was a shell sometimes. And it was like, I know he's in there, but what is going on? And we just didn't have the conversation around it to try to figure out. So, so we both we went to therapy, and he went to therapy. So it was showing up as like depression. And the first therapist that we had was someone that I went to school with, actually. And she was focused on sex and marriage, and she really helped him to see, well, I'll let you tell since it was your story and your experience, but with depression.
Yeah. So my depression showed up in my single days as me just wanting to lay on the couch on Sundays and blow through TBS movies, like they would just show up. I'd just lay there and, and I didn't recognize what was going on because it was my problem. There was no one around to have to deal with it. But my family, I think, my sisters and my parents both saw a lot of it too when I was younger, I think, but we didn't call it depression. We just called it Steve's in a bad mood or Steve's whatever. So when I had to show up as a father and a husband, it was overwhelming. I could not shake this feeling that I had of like a lack of no lust for life. Like I should be so excited to have my baby in my arms right now. And I just, all these things that I saw growing up in my parents and other parents, I wasn't seeing in myself. And it was really, I kind of had like this imposter syndrome a little bit or something. There was a lot going on up in my head, which I call a clown car. So I'll refer to my head as a clown car. Because that's what it feels like. It feels like there's so many voices up in there and so many things telling me that this and that and the other.
It sounds a little bit like almost postpartum that a mother would face, but on the father side of it, you know?
Totally.
I think all the things I expected in my marriage and in my first go as a father, as a new father, nothing was living up to my expectations. And I don't know, I'm not really sure what that's about, but when I went to therapy, we dug up all kinds of stuff. Mainly my sexual trauma from my childhood. And then also just this association of being raised by two very loving parents who were dealing with their own trauma from their childhood, which I understand now. And I think that, if I fast forward to now, that's where I think our marriage is more successful because I have a bigger understanding of that I'm not broken. I'm just carrying I'm carrying generational trauma.
Yeah.
So the therapy early on in 2008, when our son was born, till now, the talk therapy was a huge part of why we're still together. But there was so much more stuff that had to be added to that over the years.
I know, it was like, I don't remember how long he went, but it was like he went for like a year and almost we both kind of got our stuff like, all right, here we go. We're like in this groove. I'm doing really well in my business and he's a graphic designer. He was doing really well in his business at the time. And we were like at the top, we're like, all right, let's move. Our kid is about to turn 5. We were in a failing school district. We have a newborn. Let's move. Where do we want to move? And we started looking at all these places. We could go anywhere, do anything really. And we decided, and also there was like a bout of seasonal depression that I remember. I think we both kind of went through it. Like we're trying to figure stuff out. And to Steve's defense, I had my own baggage that I was carrying in too.
All right. We all do.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I had not quite figured all that stuff out. So we moved to Colorado and we heard that the sun shines there a lot and it helps with depression and it helps with, all the things. And we're like, oh, we can go skiing and we can do all these fun things. So we plan and we like set these goals to go to Colorado and we get out there and then we're just like, shit, now what? Now what? And we would meet annually and, the first of the year have these like relationship goal setting for the year. And for like 2 or 3 years, it was like Colorado and I'm going to run this. Steve's a runner. So I'm going to run the Ragnar race and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. It was January 1st of 2014. And we were sitting there trying to set our goals and I'd written out like all this stuff. And I was like, what do you think? And I looked over and he had nothing. Like nothing. He was like, I don't know.
I was lost.
It was like that major life change again that kind of spiraled us into just a really weird space. So
I was chasing the greener grass, that was sort of my thing. And Colorado for me was a change that I could stay preoccupied and busy with my business and all the things that I really didn't need. Like I didn't need to work on my business. My business was, yes, I did, but my talent level and my customer base and all that was so strong that I didn't, I just felt like I kept having to work on the things that I was already kind of doing well at, which was work and like my social skills with other people and everything but how my relationship was going with my wife and my kids. And they were just being overlooked by me going through this distraction, just really overlooking the big picture. And it was overwhelming for me. I knew I had all this shit going on inside of me, but I could not figure out how to deal with it. So and she and I just became roommates, really. We were co-parenting. There was our relationship that we knew it was not over. It was in survival mode. It was like, the only reason we're really staying together, I felt like at the time, was because deep down inside, there was a love and a connection with each other, but we just didn't know where it was. And then secondly, we didn't want our kids growing up with, in a broken home, or, to a co-parenting home, I guess.
Yeah.
I know. Have you seen that movie, The Beautiful Mind, with Russell Crowe? And that he had, what do you have, schizophrenia or something, mental health. I just remember watching that and being like, oh my gosh, would I have the capacity to be with someone? I don't remember if we were together or not when I saw it, but I remember that popping up in my head. I was like, he is in there. I don't know how to break this code to figure out how to help him, So I tried all the things of like, and also being a pure romance consultant, I'm standing up trying to help people with their relationships. So it would go back and forth from this, like, you can do this in your relationship and keep your date night, and trying to practice what I preach. But I'm like dragging him along, like, let's go to this event and let's go to that. And sometimes it would be fun, but I remember one time going to a free dance, like salsa dancing lesson. We had like a couple margaritas, and then we go up, and there's like this circle. They line you up and they pair you with your partner first. So we're dancing, and he's just like so not into it. He's so not into it. And then they switch you. And so I got swapped with this one guy, and he's like, he looks at me and he was like, I've been coming to this class for the past 3 weeks. Follow my lead. And I was like, thank God. And I just like started dancing with him. And on the way home, we were like walking to our car, and I'm like, what is going on? Did you have fun? Like, how can you not have fun dancing, salsa dancing? And I still did not know the depth of the depression and how it was taking hold and showing up differently. And he was like, I don't know what do you want from me? And I was like, did you see that guy leading me? I just want you to lead me. And it was like this, like trying, at the time, I didn't know the language for it, but I was really like using more of my masculine energy, trying to pull out his masculine energy. And I wasn't leaving enough room for him to kind of figure it out on his own.
Yeah.
So that was a whole new experience. So we from that point started, I started really working on myself and opening doors, trying to figure out, like, if I can't make him do things, what can I do to be the best person that I can be, so that I can, like, if he follows, great. If not, our kids are going to have as healthy a parent, at least one healthy parent out of this situation. So I got to be the best that I can be. And we ended up moving back to Tennessee. Steve got an amazing opportunity, and both of us were kind of relieved to be closer to home, to be around family, to have that support. And, after moving and having the space to kind of sift through stuff, because it was harder to live there on our income. And I was using my work to distract as well. I'd be like, got to go to a training in Cincinnati, got to go to, whatever they would ask me to do. I was like, oh, hell yeah, get me out of this house for a little bit.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I don't want to go. It's funny, like when we had training this last time, we had a training, and I was like, wow, I really don't want to go.
Times are different.
So, so I got back here and started looking for therapists on my own, and started just looking around every corner that, once you start looking and there's a better life, I wasn't going to settle for what was going on in our household. I wasn't going to settle for the disconnected sex that was happening once every 2 weeks. And I wasn't going to settle for like, I committed to Steve. I remember some people being like, do you still want to be with him? And I'm like, I committed to that marriage, And I had not done all the things I could possibly do to make sure that it worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. She did a great job of, instead of trying to manage me, like, at the end of the day, it was my shit. I had to get it together. She could only do so much. And in fact, if anything, it was driving a bigger wedge between us because I was like, just leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wallow in my bourbon and my beer because I got really good at those two things in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved back to Tennessee, she continued to she was doing all this stuff. And for me, it was good because it's not that I didn't want her around. I just didn't know how to be what I needed to be for her and for me.
Mm-hmm.
So she's doing all this stuff and I'm just, we're in Knoxville here and I'm on an island almost, just going through the motions. And I'm just watching her do all this stuff. She quit drinking. She was...
Because that was my coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, COVID, when we were home in quarantine, we both got really good at drinking together because we were stuck at home and they were doing margaritas to go at the local Mexican restaurant. So why not? Every Tuesday, we had pictures of margaritas coming home with us because we could just do that together. It was like the thing that we did well together. And then
it would mute the discomfort.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was totally a coping mechanism. And
so
I see now where, sorry,
I was going to say I'm glad that you mentioned COVID because I think for anybody listening, what I was going to ask was how long did this disconnect go on? It sounds like it went on for a fairly long time. And I love, Shannon, that you spoke to the realization that you couldn't be the person that was doing all of it for him. And Steve, you said that too. It was your shit. You had to do it on your own. And I think for women, so often we want to be that role, right? I know in our marriage, I showed up as that. I'm like, I want to be your coach and I want to help mentor you in your business. And I'm also your wife and also your best friend. And I want to be all of these things for you. And I was listening to something and someone's like, you can't be the everything for your spouse. You just can't. That's one, emotionally exhausting, and two, they don't want that from you, Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And so for anybody who's listening that is dealing with their own shit, you have to take the ownership, because no one else can do that work for you. And so so you guys had a really strong turning point recently in the last year. I would love to hear more on that from you guys.
Yeah, I think there were two big turning points. That one was in September of 2018, right before we had a board of directors trip in Puerto Rico. And it was, it was a really weird time. It was almost like I was going through after going to therapy for 6 or 7 months, it was almost like I started to mourn what I thought was or what I really wanted. And I had to take that time to just shift my perspective and figure out where I was going. And I told Steve, I said, I don't expect to be intimate with you. Like, I need to figure some stuff out and I want to give you the space too. It wasn't passive aggressive. It was just like, I'm taking this off of you, mm-hmm. because it obviously was a burden at the time. And we didn't realize how much of the early trauma with, someone that it was a babysitter. So it was someone that was expected to be a safe person. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have that language until like a year ago when I listened to a podcast and I was like, oh my gosh, because it's hard to find information on men that were sexually abused. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I've just kept digging, like trying to find this, how can I be a support? And stumbled across this one podcast of this guy that he does group sessions with men. And he talked about like when men are taken advantage of by a female and how that plays out in the relationship. It was like mm-hmm. textbook, like mm-hmm. everything's fine within, 2 years. And then the intimacy, because at first we had a lot of fun. We would have sex when, like the typical, like
when we first got married.
Yeah. When we first were dating and all that. But about 2 years in, it was like a weight, and it just was the disassociation that would happen, this discomfort and not connected. So I told him, don't worry about me. I don't have this expectation. I'm figuring stuff out on my own. Maybe like in the new year, we can just regroup and kind of see how we're feeling. And so I went to Puerto Rico, and I went a couple days early, and I took a journal, I took music, I took lubricant, I took the music that I took was a playlist that somebody encouraged me to listen to. It was like a self-love or, you know, masturbation mix or whatever. And I just figured stuff out. And part of that was through OMGS.
Mm-hmm.
And OMGS is through the Kinsey Institute, and they interviewed thousands of women on different ways of pleasure. And it turns out it's not just like DJ, you know, chippy chip chip. Like it is, there's like a lot of other ways that you can please yourself. And there's a lot of nerve endings in the vulva. And as much as I love toys, there's a time and a place, and just having that go-to can sometimes take away from the connection that you can have with just your hand and your body and trying to figure stuff out on your own. So I have this like sexual liberation. If you saw me in Puerto Rico at that training that we were at, I was like, woohoo! I was feeling myself.
Yeah.
I was having a good time. And I went back and I just took a little bit of time and just said, where do you want to go with this? What's going on? I feel like I'm figuring myself out, but where are you? Because his depression was not debilitating like some people would know. It was very functional and very like at work, thriving most of the time. If you know,
yeah,
for the most part,
getting bonuses, getting raises, crushing it.
Yeah. But it would show up in parenting. It would show up in our marriage, and at home he'd just be like, I'm just not here. Just don't,
Yeah.
And so that was one point. And then the following March, there was another seasonal, like kind of spiral. So it would like flare up almost like inflammation. Like you have a sore ankle that keeps, like when it rains, it kind of flares up a little bit. And so finally in March, after doing Alexa's sex coaching, because, through this process, I learned so much about my body and so much about communication. And I was meeting Steve with compassion, and I'd written out what I wanted our life to look like in 2018. I wrote, a future self journal, like this is what our marriage looks like. We are laughing and traveling together and taking a trip every year, and we're having sex consistently, and we're connected. And I painted this picture of what I wanted. And then here a couple weeks ago, I came across it and I was like, oh my gosh, I really, like, we high five. And I had shared that with him, and I was like, I'm a supportive wife, and I leave space so that my husband can, be a part of our partnership, and he can follow what he is in love with, like all these things that just didn't know how to say or put into words before.
Yeah.
And so in March of 2020, was it? Yeah.
COVID March. Yeah.
No, March of 2021. It was this year. Man, we've come a long way in a short amount of time. Yeah, taking that sex coaching class with Alexa and that sex chick, that the Sex and Love Co. They had a series of different events, and it's almost like when I found people that exposed me to all these things that I could feel it. I could feel like, oh, this is right. This feels good. This feels. I was like following my flow, following my, like literally, I was tracking my menstrual cycle. I'm learning all these different things. Of,
yeah.
Like once you turn to yourself and you learn your body and what feels good, and then everything just, it's like almost like swiping left and swiping right. Like, nope. Yeah. Nope. Yeah.
Yep.
This thing that's being offered to me doesn't feel good. And when it came to our relationship, I pretty much just said, listen, I want you to be healthy no matter what. So if we don't end up together, that's okay. I love you for who you are. And I had heard about conscious uncoupling, which was such an amazing gift, because I'm like, oh, okay. So the narrative that divorces have to be yucky and horrible and this awful thing, and you have to hate that person, that doesn't have to be the narrative. It can be like Bryn and Chris, who consciously came together, worked through their stuff, and realized maybe that was a season and we're not supposed to be together anymore. And so just having those options and that hope gave me a really comfortable space to bring it up to him. Like, you know, if we do this work, maybe it's not going to work out, and that's okay, but our kids are going to have two very healthy, loving parents.
Mm-hmm.
And he just looked at me like, he was like, it was almost like a light switch, and it wasn't, I mean, from your perspective.
For me, it was, I mean, I spent most of our marriage just trying to maintain, like, not tip the apple cart.
Mm.
Like, I knew there was something up. I couldn't figure it out. At the end of the day, I just wanted to make her happy. So I'm non-confrontational. Usually I just, you know, I'm an Enneagram 9. So I'm like,
Peacekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would spend a lot of time in damage control. Like, oh man, I really screwed this up. I got to like fix it. And it just sucked. It sucked feeling that way. I didn't feel like I was my authentic self. I found no joy anymore. I found no purpose. Like, I had no purpose. I had people be like, what, you know, if I read in a book someone talking about what their purpose was, I'd stop reading and be like, shit, I don't know what my purpose is.
Yeah.
Like, my purpose right now is just to maintain the peace in the house and keep everything, you know, copacetic. So when she told me that, I remember her saying, you know, if we're not together, it'll suck, but, you know, I want to give you that space. But before we make that decision, I would love for you to do, you know, like, do some work and figure out what it is that you want. And just having, it was almost, I don't want to say it was permission, but it was almost like, holy cow, she doesn't need me to survive. She won't be, I mean, it'll be sad for her. It'd be sad for me. But at that point, just her telling me that, it just opened up my heart and my mind. And I was like, wait a minute, she's giving me permission to find myself. And she's still going to be here for me, even if I don't find myself. Like, that was such a huge, I mean, for men out there listening, it's like, we're not the brick and mortar that we think we are. Like, it's the two people. Like, for her to be open and vulnerable like that, being like, look, you have my permission to go and do what you want to do, but before you do, will you please just try these two or three things first? We were talking about, like, there was this place in Thailand or Taiwan, I don't remember.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
It was like basically a getaway for a month where I would just go, like, find myself. The cost was ridiculous, but she was like, I don't give a shit what the cost is. I want my husband back. And I was like, holy cow. Like, it wasn't so much a shit or get off the pot moment. It was just more of I had been given permission by this person who I love and care about to do whatever the hell I need to do to get my shit together. So it was eye-opening and heart-opening. Like I said, I suddenly realized I didn't feel the panic of our marriage failing. I felt the blossoming of the new. Like, I can do, there's a lot of things I need to do, but she's going to be there for me no matter what. Like, I just had never felt that way before. It wasn't her telling me that. It was my own lack of trust in myself. Like, I didn't know how to honor my own needs because I was too busy trying to, like, maintain all the other needs in the house at a very unhealthy rate.
Yeah.
I could not have been more checked out, but committed. You know, I'm so loyal. I wanted to stay committed to my relationship with my wife and my kids, but God, they were better off. I felt like they were better off without me at that point because I just was not showing up the way I needed to.
Yeah. And so that program that you did, that was the manifestation program, or there was something before that?
No, there was, there were two things that I did that helped me, like, make this decision. One is, obviously, I haven't even mentioned the community that I surrounded myself with. Like, this was not an alone thing. And one of the things that kind of solidified the fact, like, community is so important. You know, I have a handful of friends that I'm on a Voxer app with, and they've walked through this with me. And then, you know, just finding an online community like you're in Michigan, I'm in Tennessee, but I know if I needed perspective on something, I could call you. Just finding people that are like-minded. And I've been trying to find people in this area. You know, there's like a meditation group that I met and did a retreat with. So doing those things led me to a book How to Do the Work by the holistic psychologist. And the way that she painted the picture, she just like, it was like step by step. This is what's going on with your brain. This is what you can do with it. This is how you can get out of it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, these are all pieces that I've been doing, but she put it in linear, to be able to say like, Steve, I understand what's going on with your brain. It's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
These are why these patterns keep showing up. And then the other thing was I had researched the retreat center in Thailand. It's called the Dawn Retreat Center.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
He did not end up going because there's quarantine and all this, but they spent a ton of time with me on the phone asking me about his family history, like his, all the things like functional wellness questions. How much sleep is he getting? What is he drinking? What is he eating? And it's a 12-week 3-week program,
Mm-hmm.
3-week program for $12,000. So it's really not that expensive for for Thailand. For here in the States, it would be a lot more. It was like $60,000 for that amount of time. And it didn't have the Eastern philosophy kind of portion of that. So having those two things helped me paint that picture and say, look, I understand what's going on. And also I've researched this place I'm about to ship your ass to in Thailand. And so since that didn't work out because of COVID, Jordan Bowditch had the manifestation program. And that was like an online Zoom community, which is really all that we could do at that point in time. Yeah. So it was a great lead into Training Camp for the Soul. So like Training Camp for the Soul retreat, which was like a 5-day retreat in Colorado. And I know to some people are like, holy shit, this is a lot of stuff. But
sometimes that's what it takes. What you
yeah.
get from it is transformational.
Yeah.
Right. And we were, he just turned 51. And so we're doing a lot of backtracking and trying to figure out all these behavior patterns before they're like solid, cemented. But the retreat,
I think the retreat helped, but for me to get to the bottom of a lot of my stuff, I started seeing, I just got paired. I mean, I tell you, it's community is everything and referrals are everything, because you can throw a dart at a phone book for a therapist. But
see, he's 51. He said phone book. Sorry,
yes, I did say phone book. So that's another chapter. So a really good friend of ours, 2 really good friends of ours, go to a therapist, and they referred me to her, and it was a huge, like she changed so many things for me, like just my trauma, my sexual trauma, all these things, just like, so that was part of the work for me, was getting a really good talk therapist that I could trust. And I'd been through 2 or 3 since we moved here that there was nothing wrong with them. It just, there wasn't a connection that I needed.
Yeah.
So she's been great. And then Jordan's program, Manifestation, was amazing. It was very hard for me to open up to a bunch of strangers, let alone men. But it worked out very well. I mean, I'm still connected with a lot of these guys on social media. That was huge. And then Training Camp for the Soul in Colorado, 5 days. I was so not wanting to go, not because of, well, there were 2 things. I hadn't been back to Colorado since we left, and there was a kind of a trigger mechanism for me there, because I feel like there were a lot of bad mojo. You think in Colorado, well, beauty is one thing, that's a visual thing, but for me, it was just the emotional piece of it. So I was a little bit skeptical about that. And then again, just being at a retreat center with a bunch of strangers, I know no strangers. I get along with everyone, but to be vulnerable and to talk about all the shit that I've been talking about in the last 2 or 3 years was overwhelming for me. But I did it. That's one thing I will tell everyone out there. You got to do it. You got to take that first step, whether it's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then you do it. I don't know, but I did it. I got on a plane. I got out there, and I had 0 regrets. It's probably one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. I found so many things in me that I didn't know existed, that wasn't all the shit that I was carrying with me. I had my first in-body experience where I could feel things in my body that I hadn't felt before. And that was just through doing breath work. Chris put on an amazing breath work exercise that where we're, I remember running my hands across my body and feeling tingling that I had never felt before. And, I could go on and on about it, but at the end of the day, I left there with such a great understanding of who I really have the potential to be, as a husband, as a father, as Steve Hamaker, as me. Like, my purpose, is just really, finding myself again and being in touch with myself. And, I'm at the point now where I could just ramble on, but it's really, it was very powerful, very, very powerful.
Worth the wait, it sounds like.
Oh my gosh. I was, he's gone for 5 days and I couldn't talk to him, but I would get these text messages and I was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to talk to him. And I picked him up from the airport and it was just like, he was just like, we sat in the driveway for about an hour and then came inside and talked for another hour. And it was super late. And just the stories and the connections. And one of the best text messages I got was, I can't wait for you to meet all my new friends. And that was one thing that, we talk about community. A big thing with people that have depression is just cutting themselves off or just, slowly backing away. And because he hasn't had those connections with people and they were through his people. They had nothing to do with me.
And that's a huge piece too.
Yep.
Yeah. And our sex life has like, even just since manifestation and the coaching work that we've done, or that I've done, through the program that I did, implementing the relationship check-in, or what do you call it? What do you do for yours?
Mine, I rebranded mine to be a relationship regroup. Same concept, just different components to it. But it's all about getting together with your partner on a consistent weekly basis is really the key, because the conversations that come up, even if we don't follow, the guide that I created or Alexa created or whoever created, it's that time to just talk about the stuff that needs to be talked about and address things that need to be addressed,
Yeah, and everything is intentional. We're checking in, right before we just went on a long road trip to New York to see my grandfather, his health is declining. And so before we left, we did like just a road trip check-in. What are the expectations and what does it look like when we get there? And I was like telling him where I was on my, I was ovulating. So I was in a good space where I could be around a lot of people. And he was like, well, I'm here for you. And that trip with our family, he was the most present that I've seen him on any trip, because typically, again, with a lot of personalities and expectations, he would just be like, I'll just be here. He would be there physically, but sometimes he would be there, but with a drink in his hand, because it would mute the intensity of the situation. And I would do the same. So this was the first trip that potentially could have been pretty emotional, considering the situation. Their emotions are high. My grandfather's about to pass. And he was just like there. And my love language is touch. So he'd just give me an extra long hug or grab me and give me a kiss or, pat me on the butt or whatever, just letting me know that he was there, despite us running around trying to get food and take care of my grandfather.
Yeah.
So it's been amazing.
Yeah. How about for you, Steve? What would you describe the transition now and what your sex life is like now, or in marriage as a whole, since going through all this work?
Yeah. And I want to preface this with, the retreat wasn't just a switch for me. It was almost more of a validation. It's been almost a year long process of work for me. So it's like anything. It's like getting in physical shape. You don't. They have 12-week programs out there, but it usually just takes longer than that. Let's be honest. So I'll back up for a second. I think two other things of importance was, I quit drinking, and that's not that I think alcohol is terrible for everyone. It just didn't work for me. It was a masking agent for me. It dulled my senses. It took away a lot of took away a lot of avenues for me to be present. It just really was like a masking, dulling solution for me.
Mm-hmm.
I quit drinking in July of, it was during COVID, so 2020. Right after the 4th of July, I stopped drinking, and I've probably had maybe 6 drinks since.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't miss it. In fact, I've had some very clear moments with my immediate family, my parents, where suddenly realized I was using it even with them as a coping mechanism. So that's been a huge part of my journey. And then I really got into ultra running. They gave me, Shannon and the boys gave me, Finding Ultra by Rich Roll. It's a book about a man who is an alcoholic and all that. And he basically just turned his life around by getting into ultra running and veganism and all these things. But it inspired me to run my first, 50K, which is 31 miles.
Wow.
I trained for 14 weeks. I figured I'm 50 years old. I want to do something epic. I'll do a 50K because it's 50, it's a number. So
holy shit.
So this was all part of the work for me. It was, those 3-hour Saturdays I had, and, they really got me to do a lot of reflection. And the other part of it too was, Shannon was 100% on board with me. She gave me the permission to take Saturdays to go do that. And having that support from her really helped me understand more about how she really is here for me. I mean, she really is part of my support system. That was huge. So then leading up to this retreat, I had already done so much work that the retreat was sort of like, I guess my point is, if I had gone to this retreat a year ago or even 2 years ago, there was no way. It would have been way too much for me.
Yeah.
But through getting into meditation and breath work, through Wim Hof, and there's just so many things I just immersed myself into because I was like, the way I was doing it was not working. I had to do something different, and it was uncomfortable. Doing meditation and breath work was stupid, and now I love it. I just thought it was just this hokey stuff. And then when you get into it, and I have Jordan Badish to thank for the breath work because he got me into that. Just again, if you seek the right people that are in the community, they will open doors for you that you didn't realize existed. And that's what happened. Training Camp for the Soul was just through a series of open doors that we found together, that Shannon and I found together. And I guess back to your question originally about my sex life, it's opened up a sense of trust for me. Like, I trust Shannon. I know that she's not my babysitter. She's not all these unhealthy sexual relationships I had in college. And I knew that going into the marriage, but I really didn't. Like, I didn't trust myself.
Yeah.
And so all these things, all this work that I've done has opened up this level of trust with myself that I can feel it's okay for me to feel physically good. It's okay for me to orgasm. It's okay for me to have all these physical feelings. Even the feeling of wanting to explore sexually is okay. Like, there was so much ingrained trauma and shame and all this stuff that I've been carrying with me for so many years, that doing all this mindful work and getting out of my head and into my body, and gaining trust in other people at Training Camp for the Soul, including men, it's just like I can physically feel sex now, and I'm not stuck in my head. I can look Shannon in the eye while we're intimate, and I can see into her. I can see in her body through her eyes and her mind.
Do left eye.
Yeah, left eye.
Which is always a fun.
It's just, I'm like a word salad vomit right now of stuff, but it's just like, that's it. It's just, it's been amazing for me. And I know I still have a lot of work to do. That's the thing. I'm not quote unquote fixed. I'm fixing.
Right. Yeah.
I'm still doing the work, even as I'm sitting here talking to you. So.
Yeah, great. Great point, obviously. And sharing your story is also part of the work, because how many people are going to listen to this, and, your story or each of your individual stories have inspired so many people. I already know that's going to happen. And this is just overall, this has been a great conversation. I think you guys brought me to tears at least 3 times I can think of. My empath self over here is just feeling all the things that you're feeling through this Zoom. But I appreciate both of you coming on and being so vulnerable, because it's not easy to talk about these things, and especially not easy to talk about what your life, used to look like, and especially when you didn't really like what that life looked like,
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if it's helping anyone, I'm game. And that's why I chose to, do this work also to help guide people down this path.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to look like that for everyone. Everyone's going to have different ways to get to where they want to go. But, just keep looking for your Rachel Maines, because Rachel was kind of one of the catalysts to get me to another step of the way. When she announced that she was doing sex coaching and going from sex therapy to sex coaching, I was like, what is this? And who is this person? And seeing how Alexa was showing up and all the content that she was sharing and how vulnerable she was, it's just like that snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hope it helps some people out there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again, you guys. I would love to link the two people, obviously Alexa and Jordan Bowditch, that you both mentioned. Their programs I would love if you guys could send over a link for Training Camp for the Soul, because people might be interested in that, or at least the person that runs that. And the book that you mentioned, Shannon, How to Do the Work. Holistic Psychologist. Yes. Yeah. I'd love to link all those things for people, because I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast are on some sort of self-help, sexual, expression journey. So I think all these things that were shared are going to be beneficial for people.
Yeah, and there are 2 resources where if you want specific information on sexual abuse for men, there's a book, and then there's also that person that I was referring to that had the podcast that talked about it. It's super helpful, because I was looking for a long time for that information. So someone else out there is looking for it. I've got some.
Yeah,
it exists.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you both so much again. I appreciate you, and I can't wait to see what your marriage comes of in the next several years, now that you're on this path, because it's exciting stuff.
I'm very excited too.
Heck yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a thing. And if you loved it so fucking much, be sure to leave a 5-star review. I'll see you next week, and until then, keep owning your sexual self.